running around scrambling, but we are good to go here. I think I'm logged in. Yep, I'm logged in as myself. So today we're joined by Robert Lucido and Eric Thornley. We're going to be going over the brand new, recently released Chime and Sisu integration. Robert's a power user of both, so we'll dig in a little bit more on their business, and they're doing some massive numbers and have some great systems put together. So it's going to be a great webinar. Couple ground rules before we get started here. This is being recorded. So if you were registered for this webinar, we will send that recording out to you afterwards. Feel free to forward that to anyone on your team if you feel like there's something here that they could have benefited from. We will make this interactive as well. So we have a live chat. I see Katie's already taking advantage of it. Thank you, Katie. Good morning. If you have questions, comments, you want to tell Robert how good he looks with that background, go ahead and just drop that right in the chat because we'd love to hear it. Cool. But yeah, let's get this thing going. Robert, what's up, man?
How are you?
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Love to just introduce you a little bit. So tell us a little bit about Lucido and what you're doing and then what your role is inside of the company.
Yeah, to be succinct, Lucido Global, we're in 17 states in Canada right now. We have over 350 partners. Last year, we sold a little over $1.2 billion of real estate. And like you said, we're a power user of both Chime and Sisu, and we're fortunate to be involved in the development of this integration that's making a big difference.
I love logging into your dashboards because I get to see a bee there, and it's not every day I get to see a bee there, but it's cool to see the dashboard in billions, right? So yeah, well, how long have we been working together? It seems like we started and Chime started about the same time. You guys kind of went through a big tech transition, right?
We did, yeah, about 2 years now.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll dig into that pretty deep here on the webinar. Eric, don't want to forget about you as well. Maybe introduce yourself. What's your role at Chime? How long have you been at Chime? How long have you been working with Robert Lucido?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am the program manager with Chime. So I work closely with our product team and our CS organization to make sure that we have all the features that you know and love in the Chime platform. So I am part of that product group in that sense. Been with the company here at Chime for going on 5 years. And in that time, I've seen it change from a brand new platform to what it is today, which is obviously one of the best CRMs and real estate applications in the space.
Love it. Does Robert have as much feedback for you on the platform and how it could improve as he has for me?
Absolutely. We were just joking right before we got on here that he says I'm getting sick of his emails. I get at least one a day, right? But it's always great feedback. We appreciate it.
Eric has intelligently not given me a cell phone number yet.
Robert has both of my cell phone numbers. So Robert, we appreciate you. And really I'm speaking for Sisu, but speak for Chime as well. I'm sure, it's people who are passionate about technology who have this vision and help us push it forward, right? And give us that feedback. So a lot of the stuff that we're going to show today comes directly from Robert and other users who have really just, dove in and found cool ways to do things, right? So appreciate you, Robert. So let's dig in a little bit on your tech stack. So, a lot of people on this call are already using Chime. A lot of people are already using Sisu. Some are using both. Some are using neither, right? So I kind of want to dig in from your perspective because I know you spent a ton of time evaluating. First of all, why Chime? What was it about Chime, and what is it that Chime does for you that's so powerful?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we were operating on a different CRM. We were on Boomtown for about 7 years.
Okay.
And basically we hit a roadblock. And for us to get to the next level of our vision, we fundamentally couldn't do it on Boomtown. And we went to them and we were their biggest client. And we asked for simple deliverables and they just could not, they didn't have the capability of delivering on it. And at that point, we knew we needed to look for other options. And so we went to the different providers out there, the different top CRMs, and we actually ran side by side trials on our end. So we ran Chime up against Boomtown concurrently and evaluated both. So we went through a full process. It was about a 4-month lab on our end. And we ultimately made the jump. We migrated our whole organization over the next 2 months.
Wow.
What it came down to was a few things. Chime, the platform, very easy UI to understand user interface. So that helps drive agent adoption. The automations, the capabilities around that were really profound. And so that was a huge factor. Secondly, it was just the open API. We knew that for us to achieve what we needed not just a top CRM, but ultimately a business management platform to go in tandem with it. So we knew we needed two providers in our tech stack that were both open to integrations and really effective at doing it. And then thirdly, and it may seem like a minor thing, but Chime has private leads, which our hypothesis that would be a big differentiator for agent engagement. And we have tens of thousands of agents we have tens of thousands of private leads that agents have imported into the CRM now, and in just a year of use of Chime from agent standpoint.
That's cool. So you feel like, that adoption comes easier when they feel like they can have their own little segment of the CRM to put their leads in.
It's agents' livelihood, so they should feel protective of it. And when you're dealing with a CRM that doesn't support private leads and they have to put their leads, their livelihood in a team or a company database, no matter what platform you're looking at, you have very low engagement and adoption rates when that's the case.
Very cool. And you're running how many locations on Chime now?
So before we started, we were talking about Eric with Eric, we're migrating to their new enterprise product, which if you're a large team / expansion network, it's the best product out there for a large team. The ability to customize hierarchy is bar none. So we have 47 locations.
Wow, that's huge. Love it. Eric, is there anything you want to add for someone maybe on this webinar that isn't familiar with Chime or hasn't looked at Chime before? Are there any other kind of differentiators that you'd like to throw out, or kind of big talking points that you guys usually hit on?
Yeah, I mean, I think Robert addressed some of the key ones as to why this works for an organization such as his size. I mean, our platform is constantly growing. Every 2-3 weeks, we have a new update coming out, and our intent is to constantly iterate in a way that it makes the platform easier to use, but puts more tools in your hands within our system. So obviously our platform has all of the necessary elements of a CRM. You've got your sales pipelines, you've got your lead capture tools, marketing automation. We also have an AI assistant that is one of our key differentiators right now, is that we have our own homegrown AI assistant. So there's a lot of those features on the CRM side that we have built in. Having that powered and connected directly to our IDX website is what makes our platform so powerful, because we have the ability to build those website features directly into the CRM marketing tools and the AI assistant conversations. So that's where we are focusing on right now, is really being part of your business and being a member of your team.
Love it. Cool. So now let's talk briefly, just talk on Sisu, Robert. What was the problem? What were the main problems or solutions you guys were looking for with Sisu when we started working a couple of years ago?
Spreadsheets. So, you think about this. Einstein said that, he was talking about compound interest, but compounding is the eighth wonder of the world. So if you do something well, the benefits are going to compound, but if you do something poorly, the downsides are going to compound it all. So if you think about a team running dozens of locations, having all this data coming in, doing it over and over again, having data quality issues became a big encumbrance on our operation. So for us to get to the next level and be able to scale, we knew we needed a different platform. So why Sisu? Sisu first was open to integration, and we're willing to invest in developing an integration. We're on the third version of that integration, so that'll show you in the last year we've gone through 3 integrations for that incremental improvement to now all of our organizations running on this integration. Secondly, we were trying to tackle the beast of just data entry. So with this integration, well, first with Sisu, we were able to eliminate all redundant data entry, which, maybe a passing thought to a lot of people. Oh, it doesn't take that long. If it saves you 15 minutes a day, 5 days a week, that's going to be 65 hours a year. So that's a time savings right there. And if you're a larger team and you extrapolate that across all your let's say you have 50 agents, well, that's over 3,000 hours of wasted time right there. So that was the first thing we did. We eliminated redundant data entry. And now with this integration, we've done several things. The first is we reduced even further the amount of fields that need to be entered because it's pulling right from the CRM in real time. And then thirdly, which we'll probably get to later, is how we're keeping our database up to date in perpetuity. So it really comes down to, for Sisu, was eliminating redundant data entry, and we eliminated the number of fields entered by over 40%. It was 42% exactly.
Wow. Yeah, I remember that. I remember the spreadsheets too. And at your scale, but even if you're a team of 5, right, it starts to add up, right? That compounding interest is either going to work for you or against you, right?
And if you don't do it right when you have 5 agents, you're never going to get around to doing it when you have 10, 20, or 50 agents without basically doing a whole ordeal of an overhaul, which we frankly had to do. And I can tell you, you don't want to do it. So if you're going to do it now.
Yeah, it's easier to shift and build these processes, at a smaller scale, so you can scale it up as you grow, right? But it's interesting that the first thing you hit on is that kind of that redundant duplicate data entry, the spreadsheets, the Google Forms, because I think, maybe a lot of people on this call, what first caught their eye about Sisu, I'm going to share my screen real quick, is you walk into someone's office that's running, or you guys have some of these in your Maryland office, but you guys see my screen. You see this, the dashboards, right? So I'm going to put this on full screen. So this is what really, I think, captures everybody's eye about Sisu, is like, oh my gosh, look at those dashboards, look at those leaderboards, look at the data that we could use, and that we could, have that intelligence to make smart decisions in our business, right? So that's really what captures everybody's attention, I think, initially about Sisu. But what's interesting about what you just said is the way to get there is by streamlining your process. It's by streamlining the flow of that data, right? Because you're a pretty smart guy, Robert. You could have spent, 20 hours pulling all the data together and making it look pretty. And then for one time, you would have a really good looking dashboard, right? But what happens 1 week later, right? You're not going to spend 20 hours every week recreating that dashboard. So the process itself has to create that data, has to create that reporting. And I think that's really working with you and working with the Chime team. What we've created is this process where data flows from lead in Chime to closed in Sisu with commission data in Sisu, and creates all of that reporting, right? Would you say that's pretty on point?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the point that may have been slightly missed there is just like what you hit on inadvertently, is just real-time data.
Yes.
The second you pull it off a spreadsheet and put it into a report, it's outdated.
Yep. And
as things move quicker and quicker, and innovation's faster and faster, and the market's faster and faster, and competition stiffer and stiffer, your ability to execute in a year, 5 years, 10 years down the road is going to come down to your ability to pull data in real time and make an intelligent decision in real time. Yeah. And so, while spreadsheets, were great, years ago, and they still can have great value, you have to be able to pull that data and make decisions as quickly as possible. And if you're spending time pulling data in, merging files, pulling pivots, doing different analyses, the time it takes is time taking away from you doing other things to invest in your business.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, pull this up here. I just kind of want to show what that process looks like, and hopefully resonates with some people on this call, and really the problem that we're trying to tackle here. Let's see, I'm going to share this. Okay, so what happens, and this was pretty similar to the way, a couple of years ago that, some of the problems that we were tackling, Robert, is the lead starts and it flows automatically into the CRM. And the CRM is doing all of this automation and all of these processes and all of this stuff to help you set those appointments and generate business, right? Where Sisu really comes in is at this point where it's time to, I've nurtured this lead, we've gone on some showings, like let's say I have a buyer that's going under contract, right? So now I need to pass this buyer, as an agent, I need to pass this buyer to my internal operations team. I need to pass it to my transaction coordinator. And how does that handoff happen, right? And what we find is that these intake forms are actually a great way. This is how you guys were doing it before, correct, Robert? And it's actually a great way to do it because you can give your agent a form and say, hey, here's 15 fields of data that the TC team needs to take this buyer contract to close. And so they fill out the form, and if they're missing a key field and they try and submit it, it's gonna block them. They have to put in that information, right? The issue with the intake forms, couple issues. One, half the data that's being entered into these forms already was in Chime, right? So there's duplicate data entry there. And then that form doesn't provide you the reporting that you need, like Robert said, to give you that real-time data, those real-time decisions. So you end up putting the data from these intake forms into a spreadsheet, right? Where you can kind of track some of that information. And then maybe your TC team takes it from the intake form and puts it into like a Trello or a Monday or an Asana for task management, right? Day 3, order this. Day 2, send this email, right? All of that task work that happens on the transaction based on the key dates from the intake forms, right, is being re-entered back into your task management system. And then depending on who you're brokered with, right, a lot of brokerages, a lot of teams we work with, their office requires some kind of back office system where this data has to go into once again, right? So we had the same data that was already in Chime going into an intake form, going into task management, going into a spreadsheet for reporting, and going into a back office for, to get paid by your brokerage, right? So this is when we say like streamlining the process by integrating Chime with Sisu. This is really what we're talking about, right? Because we can go from this to, let's see, we can feed it from Chime right into Sisu intake forms. Sisu can kick off the task management, kick off the commissions, do all the commission calculations in here. And then often we can push it right into your brokerage's back office. So when we say nothing is being re-entered twice, this is the kind of process that we can set up, right? And what we're really looking at today is, what does this piece look like between, Chime pushing data into Sisu, and just how easy is it for the agents to be able to run that, right? And not have to enter those data fields over and over. So I don't know if Eric or Robert, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but do you guys want to add anything in there?
Yeah, so in a typical transaction, agents would typically fill out 2 or 3 Google forms 2 years ago with us.
Yeah.
And those forms would have overlapping data. So they're fundamentally entering the address information, the commission information, the client's information, the contact information over and over again. So Sisu eliminated that into one. You enter it once, you'll never have to enter it again. This integration, all the contact information, as well as other data points are pushing into it. The other benefits are, your agents now have access to their numbers in real time. So it's not just the company having access, but the agents do. So if they have the ability to visualize their own production, where they are relative to their goals, that's going to drive performance there and of itself. When we first launched Sisu and we put the TVs up in the office, all of a sudden agents are huddling around it. And we actually had a top producer who did not know she was a top producer be like, is that right? And so they did not have any idea what their production was. We still have agents reach out to us and ask, what are your numbers? And we just say, hey, just check Sisu. You can see them at any point.
Yeah.
And then lastly, it's not just that typical funnel. If you're an organization that has ISAs, this is another big benefit, because we had Google Forms in order to run our ISA operations. So that's been eliminated by this integration as well. So anything that touches Google Forms can be improved basically with Chime and Sisu.
Yeah. So a couple things. I love that. You really, like, where do you really want your agents to live? Like, where should your agents, what system should they spend their time in that really makes money, right? It's Chime. It's the CRM. The more time they're spending there, that's lead nurture, follow-up. So one thing that's awesome about this integration, it really does keep them in Chime as much as possible, right?
Yep.
Now, your admin team, and I've heard this from a lot of teams we work with, you want them to live in a system that gives you good reporting, right? So if they can manage their workload in a system that gives you great reporting, you don't have to keep a spreadsheet for that reporting. So that's what's so powerful about moving off of spreadsheets for task management, or moving off of like Trello, Asana, Monday.com. Those systems, I mean, your transaction team can spend 24/7 in there managing tasks, and just everything is perfect. Every T is crossed and every I is dotted, and you're ready to go. If it doesn't give you reporting, you still got to go put that somewhere that does give you reporting, right? So kind of the line that's been drawn, or the way a lot of teams are running is agents live in the CRM, and admin teams live in Sisu, right? And what's nice, one thing we'll get into today is anything that happens in Sisu will feed back into Chime too. This is a two-way integration, right? So we're keeping data in sync across both sides. So anyways, Robert, maybe let's show them what that looks like, where, like from maybe from the perspective of your ISA, like how do they work out of Chime? How do they get this into Sisu, and what does that look like?
Sure. So here's an example of an opportunity that we just converted. So Cindy, let's see, pulling up. We're doing this in real time. So you can see we set this appointment today. Agent accepted. So we have our whole internal process, but at the end of the day, what our ISAs do is they create an appointment box, appointment item right here. And you can see it's been assigned to the agent. You can see the time. And then all they do is they click this bridge link. It's just a link to pull up basically. It
That
connects.
link's auto-generated for every lead, right?
Absolutely. So yeah. So, and all they're going to do is then say, is it a buyer, seller, or buyer and seller? And they're just going to assign it to the agent. Now, based upon who's assigned as the agent, it'll auto default to that. So oftentimes all they have to do is come here, just say, okay, buyer or seller, and then click create. And you can see what happened right here. This is a listing appointment that was created yesterday. It's still an appointment set, but now as soon as the agent completes this appointment, all they need to do is add their notes from the appointment and check off the box. When they check off the box, it's all going to populate the appointment met field in Sisu, which is going to update the status. So we used to have a redundant process that would require a Google form in order to run these after appointment reports. And whenever you're going to go into forms and sheets or data quality issues, it's going to be a detractor from your ability to execute. So this whole process, when you say, hey, agents, all you need to do is go in here, add your notes and check a box, your engagement skyrockets and your ability to run effective reporting off that goes through the roof. So that's the whole process. We train our agents on this in less than 10 minutes.
I watched your training the other day, which was great. I was like, this is so easy. Like you can't go wrong with this, right? As long as you watch the video. So.
We used to have to pull our Google form. Now this was a Google form that pushed to a Google sheet on steroids. So we had,
and it was on steroids. I saw this thing. That was gnarly.
We had sheets connected to sheets that were pulling all different VLOOKUP formulas and, very complicated formulas for us to be able to try to accomplish what we're doing on Sisu right now. But at the end of the day, basically we would have like 20% outstanding reports. So we would have to then pull the list of outstanding reports and then we'd have to hunt them back down. Now, if you know anything about lead generation, your funnel, when you get an appointment, if you're not converting it, if you're not following it up, your chances of converting it are dropping exponentially. And so by nature of us having to wait till the end of the month, pull these reports, then go out to the agents and say, hey, what's the status of this? That hurt our ability to execute. So now we can pull those reports in real time. We have more oversight of the whole operation, including throughout the whole funnel. We used to have a gap, a blind spot that Google Forms couldn't solve for.
Are you able to, and maybe you don't have this ready to pull up, but on the bridge page, can you click into that transaction on Sisu just to show everyone what it looks like?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
So from here, you can just click into Sisu, and this is what we tell people. This is the intake form for like a new listing, right? So when the agent actually comes to hand this listing off to maybe your listing management team, notice how the agent is already populated. The appointment set by, when it's set by an ISA, would be populated, the names, the dates. So rather than your agent taking a Google form from scratch and filling it out and sending it to your listing management team, right? They're able to come through and Sisu, fill in the blanks, tell your listing team everything they need to know to manage this listing, or if it's a new buyer, everything they need for this buyer to go contract to close, and hit submit, right? So you're building off of the data that was already there. But the other big thing about this is this will feed back into Chime and create a transaction in Chime for you. And the link is established between those two, right? So if I'm missing anything, Robert, please correct me there. But
so this integration, all it requires is that one additional click for you to actively create the opportunity. Now, in previous versions of the integration, we tried to make basically thousands of different variations to accommodate to try to predict when we should create it. And at the end of the day, what we found is if you empower the agent or the ISA with the ability just to expressly create that transaction, you're going to have much higher data quality. So it's going to be a much more effective transaction rather than trying to figure out why this went wrong or what happened in the background. Now, when that happens, it forms a one-to-one link. So now any transactions created on this bridge page with that prospect are automatically linked. So when you close any transaction, as long as it's created through the bridge page, it'll automatically push back into Chime when that transaction's closed. Now, why is that valuable? If anyone has spent time in their database, particularly trying to clean it up, it typically happens when you're trying to migrate to a new platform. What you're going to find is that your database is most likely not up to date. It almost happens across the board. I know our database 2 years ago certainly wasn't up to date. So what this materializes is that 90% of clients say they would work with their agent again, but only 12% do. So there's a massive windfall, and it all starts with keeping your database up to date. If your database isn't up to date, how can you expect you or your team to properly follow up with that prospect or former client? So one of the deliverables that we needed in this integration was that we wanted it automatically to update into the lead profile when we close out that transaction. So all that transaction information will pop back into this section of the lead profile whenever we close that. And then we have several different automations that we've built out on the Chime side to help automate that database management. So all that is made possible because of this bridge page, that integration between the two platforms.
That's huge. You and I were talking, I think just yesterday, having worked in a lot of CRMs, what percent of the time does the status, you manage wherever you manage your transactions, right? But what percent of the time does the lead status actually get updated back in the CRM? It's like, sometimes it's 50-50, right? But that is such a critical piece of information. So I love that you guys have automated that. That's huge.
Yeah, as you grow, again, all our goal is to grow and be more successful. But as you grow, quality control gets taxed more and more. So if you're setting appointments or if you're giving leads or if you're dealing with transactions across dozens or hundreds of agents, it's extremely hard to police it. And I guarantee you, unless you have a really effective and partially automated system, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
There's going to be breakdowns. And then basically what's going to happen is the agents are going to degrade your database. The leads that you've invested in, that you own, if they're not following up, if they're not keeping it up to date, they're effectively taking money out of your pocket or opportunities out of their pocket.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So a couple of things, few questions on just like reporting in Sisu. So I can kind of show, I can pull my screen up and show what some of that looks like, some of the reports that you are able to run. There's one report specifically called the lead source ROI report that I think people get especially excited about. So we'll show that one today. But before we kind of move on to that, anything else on just the streamlined process or anything in general on this? Eric, you got anything you want to kind of throw in?
No, I think you have all done a very good job of explaining the importance of being able to stay in one place and have that all synchronized across the platforms. That's the goal here.
Love it. Okay, cool. Let's jump into, because again, kind of what we talked about at the beginning of this presentation was, if you can do this, and it's not that hard to do, if you can get rid of the spreadsheets and the Google Forms and connect Sisu and Chime in this way, you're going to have amazing reporting in both systems, right? Robert just mentioned the ability to have, all their database super tight and accurate in Chime. There's some reporting on the Sisu side as well that's pretty powerful. So I'll share my screen here. This is an example. This is a personal dashboard, right? So all of this data can be created in real time by those exact processes that we just showed, right? So let's take an example, conversations, right? That's based on actually going out and working with and calling and having conversations with leads that are in Chime. And as that happens, that'll come over into Sisu. I'm looking at a dashboard for last month for an agent. You could see that their goal was 450 conversations. They ended up at 423. So they were just a little bit behind. This was the gap that they needed to close for that goal, right? What percentage of those conversations turn into appointments? And what's really cool from what Robert just showed us is this isn't just a 9 appointments and no other data behind it. If I want to dig into that, I can click on that and say, great, you had 9 appointments set. How many of those were set by an ISA, right? How many of those came from certain lead sources? What were the names of those appointments? Where are they at now, right? So I can see that this agent had 9 set appointments last month. So far, 2 of them are closed. Looks like, let me just sort this here. 3 of them closed, 5 lost, and 1 is in that signed buyer status, right? All of this data, I don't care what team you are, what process you're running, you have this data somewhere. It's just, is it in a system you can report on it, or is it in spreadsheets, forms, whiteboards? We've seen it all, right? If you can consolidate it here, this reporting becomes super easy. One that you guys said you use the agent accountability, Robert.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah. So think about these reports. Again, you don't have to go around, hunt down all this information and do all the analysis. It's all right there. So we use the agent accountability report. Now, this is going to do 2 things for you. You're either going to, it's either going to solve for activity or solve for engagement. So if you're sitting down with an agent and you have all this information here, and I think Zach's going to pull up an example, what you're going to be able to do is put it to that agent and say, talk to me about this. What's going on? What's this delta? And they're either going to say, oh, well, I actually had 2 more appointments, but I didn't put them into Chime. Or, hey, this one closed, but I didn't, or it's under contract, but I didn't submit my paperwork yet. So you're either going to solve for engagement on the tech platforms, which is a huge deliverable because, the platform's only as good as it's being used. So you're either going to solve for the engagement or you're going to solve for the underlying activities. So in other words, to put it simply, they're either not using the technology or they're not doing the activity. And if you can solve for those 2 things, you're going to increase their productivity massively.
Love it. Yeah, this report too, I mean, it's a snapshot look at, their goals, which ones they're accomplishing, which ones they're falling behind on. And one thing that I really like on this report is actually pulling in the commission values. So you can talk to, salespeople is their love language, talking commission and competition, right? But what's in your pipeline and what's the value of that hot pipeline for you, right? How much pipeline has been added this month and what's the commission value of that, right? How many buying and listing agreements did you sign and what's the commission value of that, right? So you can go all the way down through this, and this is always live in real time. This is, if you ask our CEO, this is the report he pulls up in every single one-on-one with agents. So cool. I think one other, yeah, go ahead, Robert.
It's going to give them structure that agents desperately need. If you can provide a framework for agents to thrive in it, if you think about it, how many people go on and do online classes and then never get past the first couple classes? I mean, I know I started a coding class a few years ago. I'm still on the third module.
Python?
Still on the 3rd module. So if you can give your agents a framework to thrive in, they will thrive. But most teams or most groups or whatever you call it fail or underperform is because they don't put that structure around their agents that they need to get to the next level.
Yeah, 100%. Cool. Okay. One more report that was highly requested to go over. This lead source ROI report is pretty cool. So think about how this works. We can sit on top of Chime and pull in how many leads of each lead source are being created, right? So you can see how many leads came from, I'm in a demo account right now, but you could see like different lead sources that, they're being created from. How many appointments set, met, signed, all the way down to closed came from these lead sources, and then compare that to commissions to actually know what's your conversion rate, what's your ROI on any of these given lead sources, right? And then I can break this down by agent. So if I'm sitting down one-on-one with an agent, or an ISA, and I'm saying, hey, you received X of X type of lead, right? We can really just dig into that and know kind of where's your business coming from, which lead sources are you profitable on, what mix of your business is coming from which lead sources, right? So you can really start to break that down. So this all, again, if you're running your processes, that kind of streamlined process that we went through in the beginning with, eliminating Google Forms and spreadsheets, and connecting Chime with Sisu, this stuff just starts to happen, right? Because the process itself creates this reporting. Robert doesn't spend 20 hours on a Sunday doing this type of reporting. He spends 20 hours on a Sunday doing other work because the guy never stops, but it's not this because this is already created for him, right? So cool. Take a little pause there. Let's look at some questions. Question for you here, Robert, from Thane. Do your agents always set appointments in Chime? Is that where the appointments are set, or are they set in Sisu?
No, they're set in Chime, and most of our appointments are actually set by the ISA team. But if agents are, you get them engaged on the team side, if you give them the ability to put their private leads in there as private, what you're going to see is engagement rise across all lead types. So I'm sure they use it for their appointments on their private side, but we can't see it because only they can see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There are huge benefits to setting those appointments in Chime. So one thing I love about the way the integration works, and Eric probably loves this too, is you're actually putting the appointments up there in that top right-hand corner, right? So one, that helps Chime reporting. Two, it goes into Sisu. Three, correct me if I'm wrong here, Eric, it actually will send like a calendar invite to this person who you have an appointment with. So it's actually on their calendar. They don't forget about you, right?
Yep.
You massively lower your no-show rates just by sending out a calendar invite, and Chime's doing that for you, right? So the way that Sisu pushes you to use, it really pushes you to leverage Chime more as a powerful tool and as a CRM and where you're going to drive most of your business, right? Now, one other thing I'll add about that, Robert, you mentioned the leaderboards. If I'm an agent on your team and I walk into the office each day and there's a big leaderboard showing who set the most appointments or who's held the most appointments, and the only way I get on that leaderboard is by actually logging my appointments in Chime, right, and in Sisu. Every single time I see that leaderboard, it's a little reminder of like, oh, I should leverage the CRM better. Oh, I should leverage the CRM better, right? Because no one wants to be a zero on the leaderboard when they put in the work to be towards the top, right? So,
especially when you're typically in the top and you're competing in a friendly co-opetition sort of way, they don't like to see being one-upped.
No. One of my favorite things that a lot of our teams will do is they'll split their team into two teams, and they'll do like a team versus team challenge. So you get that competition based on activities happening in the CRM, such as appointments. But it becomes less of like a lone wolf environment where, it's every agent out for themselves, because now you've got these teams. And so all the agents on these teams are, kind of helping boost each other up. So that's probably something we don't have time to get into super in depth today on Sisu, but you could take all these activities, conversations, dials, appointments that are coming over from Chime, create a point system in Sisu, and totally gamify the whole thing, right?
Yeah, most in the legacy way, you typically manage to performance or production, which typically lags 30 to 60, possibly 90 days in a hot market like we just saw, where you're having 3-month rent backs and stuff. So if you're managing to production, you're automatically 2 to 3 months behind. So if you can manage to activities and you have transparency of that whole conversion pipeline, that dashboard that you showed, Zach, allows someone to pop in there and diagnose exactly where their bottlenecks are. Is it a conversations issue? Is it a conversion to appointment issue? Is it a conversion from appointment met to signed issue? Is it on the buyer side versus the sell side? Is there priority to get on the listing side, but all their activities on the buy side? So you can figure out exactly where they're falling short and then coach and solve for that.
Yeah, love it. Okay, a couple other questions here. One thing I want to do, I'm going to drop this in the chat for anyone listening, and I'll show everyone how to get here. So if you have like tactical questions on like what data comes over from Chime into Sisu, how does Sisu define a conversation from Chime or a dial, or all of those kind of granular questions on the activity? We have a very in-depth, if you come to our knowledge base, which is just kb.sisu.co, and just search Chime, there's a very detailed overview here. So for example, tracking activities. there's actually a map here of all, and this can be a little overwhelming. I actually like it because I like to nerd out on this stuff, but there are so many activities that can be pulled so many different ways from Chime, and we can report on it in Sisu, right? So if you have any questions at all, this page is very, very detailed. I'm dropping it in the chat. And that will get you, hopefully some clarity. But really, if you're brand new to Sisu, if you're not on Sisu, grab a demo with someone on our team, and they can really walk through the specifics on it, how it works, if it makes sense for you, what systems can it replace. So that would really be my recommendation. If you're brand new to Sisu, I'm going to drop a link here, which is sisu.co/demo. Grab a time with our team. They can really kind of tailor this process to you and talk about what would work for you. And then for those on the webinar, Eric, who are not on Chime already, how would they start that conversation with your team? Where would they go?
They'd want to go to chime.me and sign up on our website on the different sales pages there. So there's some explanations of the different products and platforms that we offer within our world. And you can request more information right there. Chime.me.
Okay, perfect. I think that was good. Let's see, Eric, side question. When you screen share, what do you use to show the arrows, boxes, and to demo the mobile app?
I've asked him that exact question.
Everybody loves it. Everybody loves my red boxes. Yeah, you haven't seen them on this webinar, guys, but yeah, it's a Mac app called Demo Pro. So it's super fancy. Yeah, not complicated, but it's always fun.
So you're drawing like boxes and arrows and everything. Oh man.
All the time. Yeah, everybody asks me, and I told you, Robert, it's not a secret anymore. Yeah.
You'll have to sit through my lame demo with no boxes or red arrows or no highlighted mouse. But next time I'm gonna download that, Eric, and
gotta make it happen.
Make some boxes and arrows. That's very cool. Awesome. Katie says, helps cut through the realtor onset ADHD. That's funny. Thanks, Katie. Anyways, hopefully this has been helpful. Again, if you want to learn more about Chime, go to chime.me. Sisu, go to sisu.co/demo. Robert, if someone wants to get in touch with you or become more a part of your world, how would they do that?
Yeah, they can go to lucidoglobal.com. I'll throw that in the chat box.
Okay.
And you can reach out at hello@lucidoglobal.com. And if you guys have any questions, shoot
okay. Awesome. Well, it's always a pleasure, Robert. I love nerding out on this stuff with you. And, I know you're always scheming like 3, 4, 5 more things that you're going to automate or process with your system. So I'm sure by the time we do this again, maybe a few months down the line, you're going to have some totally, new stuff to show us. So it's always a pleasure, man. And Eric, thanks for joining. Unless you guys have anything else, we'll call it a day for the webinar.
Yeah, sounds great. I just want to thank both of you guys for all you've done to help us achieve our goals so far. Last year, we set $970 million worth of appointments on Chime, managed through Sisu. And we're up every month this year, including last month, we doubled. So all these, the integration, again, is so simple. The beauty is its simplicity, but it's allowing us to do all these things to improve performance, and small incremental gains in real estate translates to a lot of dollars in your pocket. So thanks, guys.
Neil says, this has been great. Thank you. Also, Robert, it's good to see you ended up better than all right after being drafted by the Jays. I remember.
Yeah, they're pretty good this year. Watch out for Vlad. He's a big dude.
Go Red Sox, huh? All right.
All right, guys.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep.
All right, bye.